Can you tell us something about your various roles and your studies and the part that you play in the creative arts in Teesside?
Sure. So I guess I think the main thing that I do really is the behind the scenes, I would say admin, but I suppose the more formal way would be like events coordinating and producing. So I guess if I go in chronological order, the first sort of creative job that I had on Teesside was for Middlesbrough Art Weekender 2018 as events coordinator for that. And being on that helped me stay on with the auxiliary. So I'm events coordinator for the auxiliary.
So can you tell people a little bit about Middlesbrough Arts Weekend?
Sure. So Middlesbrough Arts Weekend is, I guess, the largest contemporary arts festival in the North East. So I joined in its second iteration. So it had been going 3 years straight now, although we didn't get to do one this year, sadly. But 2021 will hopefully take place. So yeah, it's a regional arts festival where we have lots of opportunities for local and emerging artists, for new graduates. We also showcase sort of other regional, national, international artists as well. And that is run by the Auxiliary, who are an arts organisation, artist-led, grassroots, DIY, of which you are a studio holder, of course, Lisa. So
proud to be.
I happily transferred from Middlesbrough Art Weekender to staying as part of the core team at the Auxiliary. So I lend a hand in sort of doing funding applications, reporting, events feedback, but just generally mucking in, I suppose, into the various projects that Auxiliary run as well. So the most recent
I think that's one of the great things about the Auxiliary. It's like they've got, obviously, that you've got this fantastic space which is your own, but it's not your sole focus. It contributes hugely to the arts across Teesside, particularly in Middlesbrough. Like the weekend is not just at the Auxiliary, is it?
No, so I'm trying to think off the top of our head how many venues we used last year. It was about 20, but we try and spread out across Middlesbrough as a town, but also into other locations. So we had a project in Darlington, and we had one on the River Tees in Stockton. And so, yeah, really we try and use that weekend of events as a way to revitalise some of the sort of less or disused places in Middlesbrough as well. So we had a few sort of disused shops that we kind of took over to put some installations in and exhibitions. So I think it's a way of just being able to revitalise some of the areas. And I think we have our site set on Old Town in Middlesbrough, which would be amazing. But yeah, I think the real remit of that is just to bring a bit more life and creativity to the area and get as many people involved as possible as well in the making and the doing as well. So I've gone off on a tangent there. So that's the other thing that I do. So I work on the Auxiliary in Middlesbrough Art Weekender. My other role is as project coordinator for Tees Valley Screen as part of Northern Film and Media. So in that role, I kind of help support filmmakers and crew and sort of writers, directors, basically anyone who's working across film, telly, games, VFX, animation, you name it. If it's on a screen, we try and help people out to get jobs and opportunities and commissions on that. So luckily that all went online, so I've just been doing the same as I usually do from behind the laptop. And then the third thing I do is some PhD research at MEMA in Middlesbrough. So that has changed a little bit. I think before lockdown, I was on the verge of being able to interview people in person, as I think you were doing before for this, and doing some in-person workshops, but that all had to change. So now I'm doing, I guess, more of a study of how philosophy can be used as a tool to look at impact, or what we think about impact in museums, especially with communities. So that's changed quite a bit. So I think lockdown kind of made me think entirely differently about my research at MEMA. And I think it'll be more exciting as a result. So that's one good thing to have come out of we've come out of lockdown.
It's always good to hear the positives. Yeah, with that regard, I was had Blooming Art in the studio at the Orcs last night for my, and they were saying that they've just done some like training at the Arc about this idea of being able to properly assess what impact involvement in the arts has on people, and that it doesn't always necessarily make the change that you expect.
Yeah, and I think for me it's more about the stories and being able to use stories and memories to be able to talk about impact more. You know, I think even for creative projects it's all about the numbers, whether it's, you know, number of audience members reached or number of artists supported or amount of money given out, but for me the real interest lies in those more personal stories and interactions that come about as part of creative projects that often get lost, I think. You know, the things that we remember most about a project as people who facilitate them, but they're never the bits that we actually study or delve into in any more detail, I think. So I think it's where all the rich stories and impact lies there, I think. But for me, it's about twisting it around its head and saying, well, how have participants or audience members impacted us, and how have they changed the way we work? Because I think loads of it is just top down. It's, you know, still that paternalistic. Well, how have we improved people, or how have we taught people through these projects that we've done? But I think it's more interesting to me to think about how people have changed Mima in terms of my research. So the best example for that is that they have a dementia-friendly group at Mima, and they made tiles and tiled the disabled toilet in Mima, the accessible toilet. So they had a real physical impact on the gallery. They literally donned overalls and tiled the bathroom, and now it's like a living exhibit almost of art in action, which Mima sort of has its ethos built around. So yeah, I think there's a lot to be done around that area of reversing that question and thinking about how people change us as creatives or creative producers, I suppose, and change the projects that we do.
Brilliant. And yeah, that's what I really love about the Auxiliary, the idea that they're playing such a huge part, but they're letting the artists and the studio holders be the decision makers, and you know, openly asking for ideas that they can help make happen, rather than saying, we've got this great idea and can you all do it, please?
Yeah, I think it's really important to get, you know, as many people in on the conversation as possible. You know, if it's arts projects for the area, it needs to include those people and those different perspectives. And I think with the Auxiliary, it is that idea of almost being like an artist co-op, or you know, being a space where there can be true collaboration rather than just tokenistic as well. And I think you do get that sense. I got to go into the warehouse for the first time in lockdown for the kind of non-opening of Gordon Dalton's exhibition, and even though we were distant, it did feel, you know, I immediately got a sense of the way that place has been populated with all the right people, I think, and people who are collaborating but also so different in their creative practice. You know, we've had a kiln in there, and glass making, and, you know, all of these different artists who have come together under one roof. So I think the worry for us, well, for me anyway, was like, God, what's happening to the space? I had visions of the warehouse just standing empty, but going in there and seeing all the work that's been done and that's in the works is really exciting.
Yeah, I mean, every time I go there, it's something different. You know, structurally it's changed.
Yeah.
And it just has a real feeling of momentum behind it, even though it's kind of a quiet momentum at the moment. Like, as you say, it's really, when I just kind of moved in properly, it was just as it all stopped and Liz Collier's exhibition was up, and it was like, oh, this is...
It was eerie, yeah, because it was so empty. But I think, yeah, going in for Gons, it was that thing of, okay, we've adapted now. but there was that kind of quiet busyness of plans being hatched, I think.
Yes, whenever I go there, there's something happening, and it's really that. And whatever we're facing, it seems like we're fully prepared to take it on board.
I think so, and I think the way that people have come up with these ideas, or one of the projects that I helped with most recently, because obviously over lockdown I was needed less, I suppose, at the auxiliary and Weekender, certainly compared to this time last year when we were running around Middlesbrough trying to get the festival ready. But I helped Liam and Anna get a board project running. So that was the sort of, I suppose, at-home creative projects for people living in Middlesbrough to be able to do at home. So Wax, we're doing...
I was lucky enough, sorry to interrupt. No, I was lucky enough to benefit from that, and it really, really changed a lot for me again, because my main focus was accessibility, was how to get things captioned, subtitles, how to, not exclude. And I've kind of been on a journey with Cole Metcalf, the deaf poet, since last February in this, and that was just so important for me, and it's changed a lot, and I got straight on that, and was able to bring that knowledge to other people that had brought their events online.
Yeah, I think that's so important, because that's one thing that I've found in that, in my work, there's been like an explosion of online activity, but so much of it has been pushed out, and I'm guilty of this myself, of doing these things and putting them quickly online and thinking, right, well, that's that done, but actually not taking the time to consider the accessibility of those events that we're doing. And so I went to, and I think you were there at the same one, there was a workshop run by Little Cog by Vicky about that, which was amazing. It was such a, the fact that it started with a pub quiz was just a great sign of how to make a session enjoyable for a start, a 2-hour training session. But that really helped us at Tees Valley Screen, but also with my auxiliary hat on, of trying to think, right, like what are the very simple things that we can be doing that we're just simply not. And I think it's showing how, I think the arts world was guilty of being inaccessible by default, before lockdown and during. And I think that's another area that we've done a lot of learning about, I think, as a whole, but that I think is hopefully really going to change the way that we run everything.
I think the most important thing that probably we all took away from that was the idea of building it into your organisation's constitution. Everything must be accessible, so there's no excuse, there's no like, oh, we ran out of time. If it's not accessible, it doesn't go out. And I really, really like that. And an outfit that I'm involved with called Not Work 23 had their AGM weekend before last, and Collie came down and performed for us, and it was incredibly moving. We had a kind of ritual up at a stone circle, and then the darkness fell as the ritual ended, and we arranged for everybody to walk down to there's a little stage area in absolute silence and stay in silence. And then Cole did her incredible sign dancing to The Sound of Silence. And it was so impactful. And it was just, instead of me saying, oh, you really should subtitle things, it was like bringing people into her world of that kind of partial silence, and just moving them in such an incredible way that made them absolutely understand that. And I was really encouraged to come away from that, and had a chat with Dave Wybrow, who runs the Cockpit Theatre down in London, and he's absolutely on the case with all of this kind of stuff and the idea to the Constitution. And so it's been great to pick up on that, and to see the momentum building in the arts to make it accessible for all.
I know, but I think that definitely, it gives you hope, doesn't it? I think And I think what has happened as well over lockdown is, oh, I've definitely found that, you know, there seems to be more. We've been forced to reach out and look at who else is doing work, because we've had that sort of spontaneity removed from our lives. You know, everything has to be scheduled and on a Zoom call or a phone call, and I think not being able to do in-person events has totally removed that, you know, ability to just bump into someone or meet someone or see something. So I think because we've been forced to reach out to one another more, I've found already that sort of the networks that I'm aware of have sort of mushroomed, I suppose, and I can see, you know, who else is doing really good work, and, you know, not just in the visual arts where the auxiliary might normally sit, but also in theatre and spoken word, and, you know, seeing, you know, I knew that there was a lot of talent and stuff happening in Teesside before, but I think I've become even more aware of that over lockdown as well, which is really
Brilliant.
positive, yeah, and it's really exciting, and it gives me a lot of hope, I think, during lockdown, knowing what we can return to, hopefully, or that we can continue and build on while we're hibernating.
Brilliant. Nina, I could sit and talk to you all day.
I know, I'm sorry, 10 minutes is too short a time.
Absolutely, but I just think that's a hugely positive note to wrap up on, and you know, let's continue. Off, you know, it'd be nice to talk to you off camera for once.
I know, hopefully soon.
Brilliant. All right, well, take care, and thanks for
Lisa.
the work that you do.
Thank you. Bye.